season 14 truly just keeps bringing the content that I need to make these videos. And wow, this week was wild, a little bit unexpected, and as always has the fandom in an uproar. So I thought, why don't we talk about that? That being Jorgeous winning the Glamazon Prime Challenge. And we can also talk about some of the other WTF wins on Drag Race. So we're going to dive all throughout the history. And why don't we start at the very beginning with what I find to be the first WTF win on Drag Race. Season 1, the first ever makeover challenge, Rebecca Glasscock. This has been talked about so much throughout the years, and yes, I think you can understand why people were a little upset. Especially because this could have been a really big moment for Chanel, who was kind of the bridesmaid, never the bride in this season, the Susan Lucci, if you will, where she always did a really good job, but someone else always took the win over her. And if you watch this episode, it really feels like, okay, this is her time. Like, this is her challenge to win. She's doing super well. Her makeover looks fantastic. This is what she does, right? She has these elaborate costumes and makeup and hair. So this is like her perfect challenge. And then Rebecca Glasscock wins wearing this. Is Chanel the original Jan? I kind of think so. But that set the precedent for what would be many, many other very confusing and somewhat annoying wins in Drag Race for years to come. So before we get into the plethora of rigor that we're going to talk about today, I wanted to talk about quickly what makes a win a WTF win in my eyes. To me, there has to be at least two, very clear queens who did better than the queen who won. So not one, but two or more queens who did a much better job in the challenge, and then makes you go, WTF, why did this queen win? So a great example is actually going to be the next one we're going to talk about. And honestly, we're jumping to season 7. The first couple seasons of Drag Race, win-wise, I didn't see anything that was too, like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't see anything that I was like, this needs to be discussed. The first one that I actually think comes next after Rebecca Glasscock is Kennedy Davenport on season 7 in the Spoof There It Is challenge. Now, if you will remember this challenge, it is the one that sent Trixie Mattel home the very first time when she was in the bottom 2 with Pearl. So basically, the queens have to team up, and they're each given a RuPaul song, and they have to write and then record and then shoot a music video to parody their RuPaul song. Now, the final result of this challenge I don't think is very good for almost anybody, but I do think there were some clear standouts. I would say there was one queen in each team that I think stood out the most, and that is Jaden Dior Fierce, Ginger Minge, and Katya. They were the best in all of their groups. They were funny. They made their little moments count. And even when the camera wasn't focused on them, you could still see them live in the moment in the background. Now, how does Kennedy Davenport win this challenge? To me, Kennedy was a solid, like, 4th or 5th place, depending on where you would put, like, Miss Fame. Because Miss Fame, I think, actually was really funny in this challenge as well. Now, coming into season 7, I can expect, I mean, I don't have any, like, proof of this, but I would expect that she was on the top of the priority list for producers because, I mean, come on, Kennedy Davenport just makes amazing TV. She's unfiltered, she's unbothered, she can turn a look, she is one of the greatest dancers this show has ever seen, and she is just amazing television. So, to me, if I were a producer, she would be at the very top of the list of queens that I would want to see at the end of the season. So Kennedy actually falls into the bottom 2. The episode prior to this sends home Jasmine Masters. So this is just me riffing, but maybe they wanted to establish Kennedy as a threat moving forward so that if she were to continue to fall into the bottom, at least she has a win under her belt to justify her staying so long, even if she does slay all the queens that she does. What ends up happening is Kennedy actually slays most of the competition moving forward, and honestly was kind of robbed of a top 3 spot once we get to that end of the season. But early on, I don't think she stood out a ton, so I do somewhat think that production gave her the win in this episode to kind of make her stand out more than she really was, which in hindsight they really didn't need to do because Kennedy ends up hitting her stride pretty quickly after this and dominates the latter half of the season. Also, I mean, if you look at who else could have gotten a win in this episode, it's probably between Ginger or Jaden Dior Fierce. And, I mean, I guess we'll talk about this when we get to the riggery of Season 7, but they don't care about Jaden Dior Fierce. They're not going to waste a precious win on Jaden Dior Fierce. Even though, in my opinion, she's kind of the clear winner of this challenge. Then you look at, okay, Ginger Minj, but she had already just won a comedy challenge. I genuinely think that Kennedy gets the win in this episode because she does a fine enough job. Her runway is fine, and it's to kind of make her stand out a little bit and become one of the front runners. So now let's talk about, and honestly, I really don't think there's a ton of questionable wins until recently because we're going to jump again to Season 10, the Breast World Challenge. So before we talk about this one, and actually I'm just going to let you guys know, we're going to talk about 2. Because I think they're very similar. We have Silky Nutmeg Ganache in the Rusical and Asia O'Hara in Breast World. But before we do that, we need to jump back to Season 9 to the Kardashian Rusical, which Shea Coulee wins by being Black China. The reason I want to talk about this is because it kind of created a trope that they use a lot in later seasons, where there's a little tiny bit part in the challenge, and on paper it comes and it goes, and it really could just be a whatever role. But if a queen can recognize it as having the potential, she can really make it something bigger, which Shea Coulee did with Black China, knocks it out of the park, and wins the challenge, despite it just kind of being a cameo role. And I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but I do feel like they give Asia O'Hara the win and Silky Nutmeg Ganache the win to kind of continue this trope. So let's talk about Asia O'Hara and Breast World. We're at the final 6. Asia has 1 win and has kind of hit a rough spot in the middle part of the competition. She had just lip-synced and sent the Vixen home. So, 1, I think she gets the win here as kind of a rebound because, kind of like with Kennedy, Asia O'Hara is just amazing television. She has such a warm and bright personality, and she's so rootable that she's the kind of hero that you want to see in the finale. So I don't think they were ever going to get rid of Asia O'Hara. So giving her the win here, 1, rebounds her from her kind of really bad performance the last week. Also continues this trope of she's just a cameo. Like, she plays Sarah Palin or Parasailin, and it kind of comes in and leaves, and it's funny, and she does fine. But I would argue Aquaria and Monet Exchange both do much better, and they're the ones that are actually carrying the scene. Because we have Monet Exchange, who is improving. We see her improving and adding these funny lines during the recording. Then these lines don't make the final cut, which is interesting. We see Aquaria, who has shown to be funny because she won Snatch Game, really coming out of her shell and being this robotic drag race queen for the skit, and it's really funny. And then you see the comedy queens like Eureka and Ms. Cracker kind of flailing and not doing as well as expected. So to me, Asia is kind of right in the middle. She does a solid performance. Her role isn't that funny, but it does serve its purpose and she does it well. whereas both Monet and Aquaria have the kind of bigger, meatier roles, plus they're performing them to, like, the best they could possibly be. I personally would have given either of them the win over Asia O'Hara, but it's kind of the Shea Coulee effect, which we're going to see again in the Trump Rusical, because we have Silky Nutmeg Ganache playing Oprah for this kind of segment in the middle of the Rusical that comes out of nowhere. And maybe I'm just stupid when it comes to, like, early 2000s when Oprah was, like, huge. I'm not sure the relevance of Oprah to Donald Trump, because you have all these characters like Sarah Sanders and whatever. Because it seems like everybody that is in this Rusical has some kind of relation to Donald Trump, and then Oprah pops up, and I'm like, am I missing something? Did I miss some kind of pop culture moment between these two? Why is Silky here playing Oprah? Everything pauses, and Oprah comes out on the stage and gives this soliloquy and then leaves. Very Shea Coulee, Blac Chyna. And then she gets the win. And I was like, you know what? Silky did well. Like, with what she was given, that role wasn't super funny, but she performed it well. But looking at this Rusical, there were so many queens that did an amazing job. Sugar Cane did an amazing job. Brooklyn Heights did an amazing job. Nina West did an amazing job. Evie Oddly did the best job, in my opinion. Those four I would put over Silky. So again, we get a queen who is, I would say, towards the top, 4th or 5th best, but there were so many other queens who I felt gave a better performance when it came to the challenge. And especially looking at this episode, the theme is orange on the runway, and I would say every other queen that I mentioned had a very conceptual look when it came to the category, right? Because when you think orange, there's so many ways you could go with it. And each of these other queens, I felt, took it in a really fun and unique place, whereas Silky came out in just a dress, which, to her credit, that is kind of her drag style, right? She's a pageant queen. She came out in a beautiful pageant gown. But also looking at these other runways that were more conceptual when it came to the prompt, and I felt like they just did a little bit better than her in the challenge, I was a little confused. And the internet was a little confused when Silky won this challenge. And I honestly think it was the start of her downfall. I mean, I guess the start of her downfall came earlier than this episode when it came to the fandom's perception of her, but this kind of solidified it, because you have her fight with Evie in episode 3, which people take Evie's side, and Silky's kind of not getting a lot of positive reception. Then she gets this win here, which people really disagreed with, and I think this is really what jump-started the Silky hate train. Now, luckily, since she came back for All-Star 6, she's now a fan favorite and people live and love her, whatever. But I do think that this is a great example of how getting special treatment from production can leave a bad taste in the fandom for the queen, which obviously it's not the queen's fault, but it is something that we see happen again and again. So let's move on to another Season 11 challenge, which is kind of breaking my original rule that there needed to be 2 queens who did better. But I did want to just touch on this one. Plastique Tiara winning the Farm to Runway challenge. Now, I don't think I'm crazy in saying I think Plastique was a solid second best in this episode. She made a gorgeous, gorgeous look, but it was something we'd already seen her wear multiple times already throughout the season, so we kind of weren't, like, as astounded by it as if this was, like, the first time she wore this silhouette. Then you have Evie Oddly, who, for the first time really this season, is doing a full-on glamour look. She made this look from head to toe, and it looked amazing, and it was different for her, and it really felt like this was her moment where the judges could be like, you're serving us glamour, you've given us spooky, you've given us weird, you're the full package, here's your second win. Instead, they kind of give the win to Plastique in an episode where, as we've talked about a lot on this channel and other people have talked about, Plastique kind of had a lot of things going for her in this episode that were a little sus. And especially when you have Vanjie getting red for wearing the same silhouette too much, here having Plastique win in the same silhouette she's worn the entire season did feel a little bit wonky. So just wanted to quickly mention that one before we move on to, I'm going to say, before last night, this was the most WTF of every single challenge win. This is Sherry Pie in World's Worst. This one, I'm still scratching my head years later. She wasn't even the best of her group, and her entire group was what I would say safe. They like her. Okay, let's take it a few steps back. So she's in a group with Aiden Zane and Britta Filter, and they are playing three sisters who share one brain. So as you can imagine, it's kind of hard to stand out in a challenge where you and two other queens are all supposedly playing the same person, sort of. Like, all three of them said the same lines, all three of them kind of had the same look and feel, and to me, they were all fine and it was safe. And then you have Sherry in the top and getting these, like, amazing critiques, like she was the star of her skit, when there was no star to their skit. All three of them were, like, fine. Honestly, I thought Aiden did a really, really good job. Sherry did a fine job, and Britta did a fine job. And looking at the other skits, especially Gigi and Jackie and Heidi's group, they were so much funnier. And it's not fully Sherry's group's fault. I don't think they had a really good concept to work with, whereas like Heidi's group had a really funny concept from the jump. They wouldn't have to work as hard to make it super funny playing these old singers. Sherry wins this challenge, and I fully think it's because they wanted her to be the winner of the season, and giving her a win right off the bat establishes her right away as a frontrunner in the eyes of the fans. Yeah, this one is so WTF that I don't really even have a full explanation for why I think it happened, other than they liked Sherry, they wanted to give her some wins. Now I want to shift over, I want to talk about some All-Star seasons. All-Stars 1 had kind of a weird one, but I think it's a very easily explained one. Team Shad winning the makeover performance challenge. So you have 3 teams left, which means you're going to have a winner and you're going to have a bottom 2. So in my opinion, Team Yar Alexis probably should have won this challenge. But I can see why other people say that Ruju B should have won too. Regardless, Team Shad, I don't think they were bad, but I think that they had some problems with their group that were more obvious than problems that the other 2 teams have. Let's just say that. The problem is you have Alexis Mateo, and you have Raven, and you have Jujubee, who are all complete lip sync assassins. They are some of the greatest lip syncers we've ever seen on this show. So if you put Chad or Chanel lip syncing against any combination of those 3, Team Shad is going home. The problem is that Team Shad has been dominating the entire season, and losing them here to 2 teams that kind of haven't been doing as well would be kind of a deflating moment in the season. So fully, I think Team Shad wins so that they don't have to lip sync and go home. I also want to talk about talent show wins. There are 2 talent shows that I just still am very confused about to this day, and that is Trinity the Tuck's tucking tutorial and Yara Sophia's, I don't even want to know, I don't even know how to explain what it was in All-Star 6. Now, Trinity the Tuck, obviously she won the season, and going into the season, she was... I think that it's a lot different now because of the whole SheDevil by Night thing, and she's had some controversies, but I think we need to remember just how massive Trinity the Tuck was going into All-Stars 4. I mean, she was probably, along with Shay, the fan favorites of Season 9, especially at the finale. People loved Trinity. I remember I loved Trinity. And so coming into All-Stars 4... even before I knew what happened, I kind of expected Trinity to slay and to win. And I remember rooting for her until I saw her talent show, and I was like, okay, so she's not going to win this week, but it's fine. I'm still rooting for my gal. And then she did win, and I was like, I'm happy because I love Trinity at that point, but did we just watch the same thing? It was the definition of safe. And again, with Yara Sofia, one of my all-time favorite queens, and I was so happy that she won, but at the same time, I was like, why? I think that they're kind of similar, right? They're these very raunchy, completely out there performances, which I'm not sure if the producers think that that's what fans like the most, or if that's RuPaul's taste, or what. But these two performances, I was so confused, especially when you had people like Gia Gunn and Latrice Royale and Manila Luzon, who had done so much better with their talents, such more interesting and fun talents to watch. And then with Yara Sofia, I mean, Jan and Scarlet Envy and Raja O'Hara, there were so many other performances that I was like, felt was deserving of a win. And while we're talking about All Stars 4, can we talk about Monet X Change winning the makeover? Listen, I love Monet, and I will say, in this look, Monet looks like a goddess. She looks like perfection. But the makeover part of the makeover challenge, I felt had some issues. We'll just say that. I remember this episode. She comes out onto the runway with Patty, and I was just like, oh no. Okay, so Monet's in the bottom. Okay. And then she got called as a winner. And I was a little confused. We'll just say that, because Patty's makeup was blinding me. Literally, it was like looking into an LED light bulb, how white and pale their makeup was, which I'm sure it's difficult for Monet to paint someone with a completely different skin color and skin tone than hers. But like, oh my, I still am very confused. Still confused to this day. Especially when you have Trinity the Tuck and Monique Hart, who had, in my opinion, much better looks. Even just apart from the makeup, they also had better looks. Yeah, All Stars 4, we're going to talk about it soon. We'll get to it. All Stars 5. This is another one that kind of is different, because I actually do agree with this win. Jujubee in the hotel makeover challenge. So the reason I'm going to have it on this list, though, is the way that the critiques went. Because you have the judges tell Team Blair and Mayhem that they had the most successful room of the night. You're like the best team of the night. And then they literally look over at Jujubee, and they're like, Jujubee, you're the winner of this challenge. And Jujubee was like, what? You could tell on her face she did not think she was going to be in the top or even winning. And then we see she also didn't learn the lip sync because she didn't think she was ever going to win that challenge. So I was actually fine with Juju winning. She did really good. She was really funny. It was just the, like, Blair and Mayhem, you are the best team this week. Now, Jujubee, from a completely different team, you are actually the winner. And they do this again on All-Star 6 with Ginger Minj in the Pink Table Talks. They literally say, Eureka's team, you guys were the best of the week. You're all high. You can leave the stage. You did amazing. Because guess what? None of you are winning now. Ginger Minj is going to win this challenge, despite her being on the worst team overall. And that one I really am angry with. Not angry, but like I was upset in the moment because Ginger was the team captain for this challenge, and as team captain, she was the moderator. She chose this role, and as moderator, she had to kind of prep the conversation, right? So she's on a team with Jan and Pandora. So as moderator, it's up to her to make sure the three of them are all on the same page. They all know what they're going to talk about. They all know what they're doing, and she will then lead the discussion. Well, when you see their group, Ginger does an amazing job because it's Ginger. But Jan and Pandora are on completely different television shows. Jan is on Instagram Live. Pandora is, I don't know, in La La Land, honestly. So yes, Ginger did a good job in the challenge, but she also completely let her teammates down when she took over the role as leader. So to me, Ginger should definitely have some of the blame for what happened instead of getting the win over an entire team that did better than her. So, yeah, that one and Jujubee were very reminiscent of each other in my brain, so I just wanted to talk about them at the same time. I just did a video on Canada's Drag Race Season 1, the riggery of, so I'm not going to go super in-depth into this, but Rita Baga winning the first design challenge and then the law firm challenge when the first episode, she honestly had one of the worst looks of the night. Again, this one is like really, really WTF when multiple queens did way better than her. Was she bottom 3? No, but she was kind of close. And then in the law firms, that was a bottom 2 performance, and the judges literally said your commercial made absolutely no sense, and Jimbo was the funniest part of it. Rita Baga, congratulations, you're the winner of this week's challenge. So yeah, Rita Baga's 2 wins obviously turned the whole fandom against her. Again, not her fault, but getting not just 1, but 2 very questionable wins is one hell of a way to get the fandom to hate your guts, unfortunately. Now, Canada's Drag Race 2, we have Adriana in Screech, which is the acting challenge parody of Scream. Now, to me, Adriana had the best look of the night, but she had a safe performance. But she won that week because of her runway fully, which I'm fine with, and honestly, Canada's Drag Race, I think, does factor in the runway more than it does on, like, US or UK. So, it makes sense in that regard. But there was definitely other queens who I thought were way funnier in the challenge than Adriana, namely Eve 6000. This, to me, should have been an Eve 6000 win, but I get that Adriana had an incredible runway and they wanted to reward that. So let's talk about a couple from UK. Again, I just did a video on UK 1 where we talked about why Cheryl lost the makeover and why Davina won. Honestly, Davina won the makeover so that her and Baga and Vivian could all go to the finale with the same amount of wins so that it would be super competitive. They each would have 3 wins, and it would be like, oh, cool. Because honestly, if Cheryl didn't win the makeover, it should have been the Vivian, and then it should have been Davina. Because, I mean, I get that her sister was pregnant, and I'm sure they had issues with fitting things right to her body at that point, but I mean, these droopy gowns were not it whatsoever. When she came out on the runway, I was like, oh, Davina, sweetie, like, we need to talk about these gowns and how you must burn them immediately. And then she won, and I was like, oh, so they really don't want Cheryl in the finale. They really want Cheryl out of here. So yeah, that's one for the books. Now, the next one, this one is kind of less for me, but I know that the fandom itself was really upset about it. It's Crystal winning the Dragathon challenge on UK3. Now, in the moment, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, she was really funny, cool. But then I went online and I saw how pissed people were that Kitty Scott Claus didn't win, or that River Medway didn't win, or that Veronica Green didn't win, or that Theresa May didn't win. And I was like, okay, well, let's watch this thing again and see if I still agree with Krista winning. And I'm fine. I'm okay with Crystal winning. I do think that either Kitty or Theresa winning would have been a better storyline, but you know what? It didn't happen, and they gave Crystal another win, but it's fine because then the fandom called her robbed the next week. So, you know, everything balances itself out in the end. We talked about all of these. We finally now can talk about the one that inspired this video in the first place. Jorgeous winning that design challenge. I first just want to say, I feel so bad for Jorgeous. I feel so bad for her because, one, she was already saved from the bottom in a week where she fully should have been in the bottom, and the fandom called it out. Then she gets one of the most, this is a top 3 for me, WTF wins in Drag Race history, basically within 3 weeks of each other. And oh my gosh, I feel bad because the fandom is going to rip her to shreds, like they always do, which obviously I do not condone, but it's just what happens. So let's look at this look. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I like it a lot more now that I've had time to sit with it than I did it originally. And honestly, one of my friends said that it looks like a Destiny's Child look that Beyonce would have worn in the early 2000s. And that is fully, yes. Like, I completely see that. And once they said that, that's when I think I started to like it a little bit more, because I do like the color combo. I do like the fabric that she used. I do like that she used the cookie cutters in a fun way. Really, the only problem for me is that it feels small, right? It is fabric wrapped around her body, and a bigger queen could never get away with this. I think a lot about Nina West doing her corn husk look, where she made a whole corset and a peplum and a peony all out of corn husks. And if a skinny queen had worn that look, everyone would have loved it. But because it was Nina West and, she is not the skinniest queen out there, people ripped that look to shreds. And I still to this day fully disagree with that. Fully disagree, because you can see how much work she put in. You can see the silhouette that she made for herself. And literally, if Jorgeous wore this, I know people would lose their minds and go, oh my gosh, this is so, look at how much work she put in. She did so much with the corn husk. She snatched, like, she looks amazing. To me, only a very specific body type can wear this look that Jorgeous wore, which there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously, it's not Jorgeous' fault that skinny privilege exists. But when it's rewarded like this, when, so many other queens could have worn this and got ripped to shreds, that it was too basic, that it wasn't enough. We've heard that critique so many times in design challenges. So why suddenly does Jorgeous get the win? And it's fully because I think, one, her personality. She served it on the main stage. She gave everything she had. And two, because I think they really want Jorgeous to be at the end. I think they want Jorgeous to be the lip sync assassin of the season. And you can't be a lip sync assassin without also showing that you can at least win a challenge, right? Every huge lip sync assassin we've had has won at least one challenge or done very well for multiple challenges. Even Trinity K. Bonet had those couple weeks where she was in the top every other week. I really think this was to establish Jorgeous as somewhat of a threat in the competition, so that now, if they put her on the bottom for 3 more weeks and she lip syncs for 3 more weeks and she keeps sending people home, they can justify, well, I mean, she already has a win. I mean, she's already been in the top a couple weeks. That's the only way I can really explain it, because, I mean, Betty had a better look. Lady Camden had a better look. Bosco had a better look. Angeria had a better look. Willow had a better look. And to me, like, this is safe. It is a completely fine look. She sold it. She looks beautiful, but it's safe. And unfortunately, this win set the fandom into a storm. And all I'll say is, Jorgeous, don't listen to a word these psychos have to say. I'm sure that her inbox right now is like, you stupid, ugly bitch stole the win from Lady Camden. Lady Camden deserved the win. Go rot in hell and die. Like, I am sure that is what her inbox looks like right now. So, Jorgeous, block these hoes and don't even worry about it. Take that $5,000 and make some cookie cutter merch or something, because I feel bad, because really, looking at this list of queens, so many of them are hated by the fandom or were hated by the fandom during their seasons. And it is just a testament that if a queen is favored, usually the fandom is gonna turn against them very quickly. And I kind of think that's what's happening with Jorgeous right now. We'll see if she can recover. I hope that she does, because she is a fierce queen, and I am really enjoying watching her perform in all of these challenges. Still, I will say, that win, a little questionable, ma'am. All right, well, that is all of the wins that I have time for today. If you think that I am missing any, let me know in the comments below. And there were a couple in Drag Race Down Under that I definitely think could have made this, but honestly, I don't want to talk about Drag Race Down Under anymore, guys. Can we just not talk about that show again on this channel? until season 2 comes and hopefully redeems that entire franchise, I just don't want to talk about it. So, besides Drag Race Down Under, are there any wins that you think that I missed? And which ones on here do you actually disagree with me or the fandom with that you think the queen actually did deserve their win? Let me know in the comments below. Here are the links to all of my social medias, as well as my beautiful patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means so much to me. If you want to join the Patreon, we have a Discord server, we have Patreon-only videos, we have contests, and all kinds of fun stuff over on the Patreon. We have $1, $3, and $5 tiers. So if you want to support me, that's honestly the best way to do it, and I would appreciate it so much. So thank you guys so much for watching. It has been such a long day solving the mystery of who deserved to win the Glamazon Prime challenge from this past week. And I think I finally solved it. The answer is Orion Story, because, I mean, look at this. She made this in one day. Go stand and support Orion Story, because honestly, she might be one of my favorites from the season. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one.